Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're watching. The update that people have been asking me about the most is an update about Museveni and his wife JENNET Museveni, who are absent from Uganda. At this point right now, as I speak, JENNET is no longer with us. JENNET Museveni passed. She passed away a few days ago, but they will not disclose that she's no longer with us. Of course, understandably, because of how they want to continue looking powerful or in control of Uganda. But deep security alerts within them states that JENNET Museveni is no longer with us. She's deceased. As for Museveni himself, as you know, he's absent. He has not been around during Easter. He usually made a live broadcast or a message to Ugandans about Easter and all that. But what we saw was a document that says he said this or that about Easter. We usually saw JENNET Museveni and Museveni himself come out on Easter, like every nation. In the United States, we had President Trump give us an Easter message, as expected of every nation, but they're both not well. Well, one of them is not well and the other one is not with us. It is very, very difficult to say rest in peace when we have a person or people who have lived a life dependent on others losing their lives based on their orders and their existence. I couldn't remember a time when Museveni was good news for Uganda. For a short period of time, he convinced, especially the people who ushered him in, that he was a good person. He was coming to fight for Ugandans, fight for their lives, change of government, change of leadership, everything that we wanted to hear, because desperate times were the times. But we can't say the same now, because the characteristic of Museveni's government since his existence, since his coming to Uganda in the 1980s, has been embellished with people losing their lives. The Luero, millions of people were killed in Luero. During his time, 1986, Acholi started suffering from the LRA war, which lasted 20 years. There came other massacres. Kasese recently, a few years ago, that existed. Museveni is still in power. Besides that, come down to our people in the community, people who we know very well, people in the opposition just disappearing, leaders who obviously are, powerful, who we think are good successes, people who are performing and leading the communities or taking up positions in the government. Anybody who is a threat to Museveni and his family, they have done away with. Susan Magala, for example, who JENNET Museveni actually ordered her murder. She was existing as a Ugandan of her own will. But because she did something that they didn't like, they wanted to take over her father's farm. They wanted to do this and that. People have died. So many people have lost their lives. They've lost their livelihood. They've lost, dignity. You can't point to a wealthy person who has remained wealthy for many years.